Today I'd like to talk with you about the trial of Jesus, which was plural. You know, when Jesus was tried to be crucified, it actually took 6 different trials that he had to go through, formal trials, before he actually got condemned to death. And as you read in the various gospel accounts, it's sometimes hard to put them all together. And so what I've done is I've gone through and tried to outline it the way that it actually happened chronologically. And I'd like us to just look at those 6 trials that Jesus experienced. And we're going to start in the book of John, chapter 18. And so if you'd just like to turn there with me, John, chapter 18. And we're going to begin in verse 12. John, chapter 18 and verse 12. It says, "Then the band and the captain and officers of the Jews took Jesus and bound him and led him away to Annas first, for he was father-in-law to Caiaphas, which was the high priest that same year." So here it tells us where he went first. He went to Annas. Annas was the former high priest. He was the one who probably most people who had been around a while looked to as the high priest. He had been high priest for years. He was the senior. He was the one that really everybody looked to, even though his son, Caiaphas, or his son-in-law, was technically the high priest. Everybody looked to Annas first of all. And in their society, which was patriarchal, they would first take Jesus to Annas. This was, you might say, a preliminary trial before the official trial, which would take place under Caiaphas. So, as we look at this verse, I'd like us to go down to find out what the issues are here. Let's go to verse 19. John chapter 18 and verse 19. It says, "The high priest then asked Jesus of his disciples and of his doctrine." 2 things he's asking. He's asking of his disciples and of his doctrine. Now, the reason he's asking about both of these different things is because he has to create a case against Jesus. But he has to actually create 2 different cases. He has to create a case for the Jews so that they would be willing to condemn him, and he has to create a case for the Romans so that they can condemn him. The 2 may not be concerned about the same matters. The Romans aren't really concerned about Jewish issues, and the Jews aren't really concerned about the Roman issues, so he's got to deal with both. And so in asking him about his disciples and about his doctrine, he can cover both. For the Romans, he's going to ask him about his disciples. He's going to ask him about this organization that he has developed. Jesus had gone around and collected a band of disciples that were his followers, and this would look to be like some type of an organization that was developing that could potentially be a threat to the Romans. And so in terms of trying to convince the Romans that this was somebody that needed to be put to death, he wants to talk about what is this organization that you're developing here. Now for the Jews, he's going to ask about his doctrine, because he wants to find out if there's some way that he can trap Jesus in terms of some of his teachings or claims that would be, of course, a problem in the minds of the Jews. So for the Jews, he wants Jesus to be condemned of blasphemy specifically. And for the Romans, he wants Jesus to be convicted of sedition. You see, they want to find out here in terms of the Romans, is there some secret society that Jesus is working with here? He's establishing a new kingdom. He talked about a new kingdom, And so is he going to be setting up a kingdom in opposition to the Romans? And for the Jews, he's going to ask them specifically about his identity and his claims as to who he is, to find out if he will speak something that will be blasphemy. So let's read on here in John chapter 18, and we're going to read verse 20. Jesus answered him, I spake openly to the world. I ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple, whither the Jews always resort, and in secret have I said nothing. Now, what's Jesus addressing there? He's actually covering both points in terms of his teachings and his organization, but primarily he's addressing here the potential charge. Now, the priest had not yet stated where he's going, but Jesus understood what the issue was, and he knew how he had to respond here. And so he's against this charge that he was establishing some kind of a secret society. Jesus is saying, hey, everything I've done has been in the open. I haven't done anything in secret. Verse 21, why askest thou me? Ask them which heard me what I have said unto them. Behold, they know what I said. So, again, he's addressing both his teachings and also this idea of a secret society. Now, who are them which heard him? Well, everybody had heard him because he did teach openly, but particularly he was referencing here the spies that the priest had sent to listen to every word that Jesus had said so that they could catch him in something. And you know the story of all the different ways that they tried to trap Jesus in his words. And they always came back and they said, surely no man spake as this man. They were just dumbfounded by the way he spoke, and they couldn't come up with anything against him. So Jesus here is addressing both concerns there and just totally wiping out the whole strategy that the priest had. Hey, I said everything in the open, and just ask the people who were listening to me, and they'll tell you what I said. So that didn't work out very well, and so Annas decides to send him to Caiaphas. So let's go now to Matthew chapter 26 for the next trial that Jesus has, the next attempt to condemn him. Matthew chapter 26, and we're going to begin in verse 57. Matthew 26, beginning in verse 7. And they that had laid hold on Jesus led him away to Caiaphas, the high priest, where the scribes and the elders were assembled. So this is the acting high priest, son-in-law of Annas. And what we know about him is that he was a Sadducee. We know that the Sadducees did not believe in the resurrection or the afterlife. They didn't believe in the judgment. The Sadducees were the liberal party, but they were also the controlling party in the government of the Jewish nation. I'm not talking about the Roman government. I'm talking about the Jewish organization there. And so you had the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and they were always against each other. The Pharisees were the strict ones who wanted to follow every detail of the law. The Sadducees were the liberal ones. But they were the ones in power. And so Caiaphas was a Sadducee. So let's keep reading here in Matthew chapter 26, verse 58. It says, but Peter followed him afar off. This is Matthew 26, 58. Peter followed him afar off and went in and sat down with the servants to see the end. Verse 29. Now the chief priests and elders and all the council sought false witness against Jesus to put him to death. They are trying to figure out a way to condemn him. They want him dead. So what do? They bring in witnesses. Well, they don't have any witness that can say anything that was really bad about him, so they hire false witnesses. Notice what it says in verse 60. But found none. Yea, though many false witnesses came, yet found they none. At last came 2 false witnesses. Verse 61. And said, This fellow said, I am able to destroy the temple of God and to build it in 3 days. Now, what's going on there? They misquoted him. Had Jesus said, I am able to destroy this temple? No, he didn't say, I am going to destroy, or I am able to destroy this temple. If you'd like to see what he actually said, go back to John chapter 2. John chapter 2, beginning in verse 19. Don't lose your place there in Matthew because we're still going to look at some verses there. But in John chapter 2, notice what Jesus had said early on in his ministry. John 2, beginning in verse 19. Jesus answered and said to them, Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Then said the Jews, 46 years was this temple in building, and wilt thou rear it up in 3 days? Verse 21. But he spake of the temple of his body. So who was doing the destroying? Who was going to do the destroying? The Jews were going to do the destroying. He wasn't saying, I can destroy this temple. He said, destroy this temple, talking to them. You are the ones who are going to destroy the temple. And in 3 days I will raise it up. And was Jesus' body temple raised up in 3 days? It absolutely was. And so it's very clear he was speaking of the temple of his body. But they are trying to come up with some way to condemn Jesus. And so they're thinking, if they can lay on him the charge of destroying the temple, that's going to be something that both the Jews and the Romans are going to be against. The Jews, of course, would not want their temple to be destroyed. And the Romans actually took great pride in that temple also because the Romans had contributed to the building of the temple under Herod. Herod was, they call it even Herod's temple in the fact that he had done a lot of embellishment to the temple. And so this was something that both the Jews and the Romans, if Jesus was plotting to destroy the temple, it would be a serious charge. But how does Jesus respond? He doesn't even bother to answer. People realized that this was not something that would really condemn him, and Jesus wasn't going to go out of his way to try to refute this. He had said what he had said, and he was going to leave it at that. Okay, so let's go back to Matthew 26 and verse 62. And the high priest arose and said unto him, Answerest thou nothing? What is it which these witness against thee? Verse 63. But Jesus held his peace. Then it says, And the high priest answered and said unto him, I adjure thee by the living God, that thou tell us whether thou be the Christ, the Son of God. Now here, Jesus is being placed under oath. He is being charged with the solemn charge of telling, and notice, he needs to answer on 2 counts. Number 1, whether thou be the Christ, and number 2, the Son of God. Now, the Christ is the Greek word for the Hebrew word Messiah. So the Messiah. So this would be something which would potentially get him in trouble with the Romans, because here is a Messiah figure who is going to, in their minds, the Messiah's job was to deliver them from the Romans. So this was a potential thing that could get him in trouble with the Romans if he did claim that he was the Messiah. And in terms of the Son of God, that would get him charged with blasphemy. If he is the Messiah, that would be sedition against the Romans. If he's the Son of God, that would be blasphemy, to actually claim to be the Son of God. And that would get him in trouble with the Jews. So these two objectives possibly can be met by Jesus' answer to this question. Tell us whether thou be the Christ, the Son of God. Now, at this point, Jesus cannot remain silent. He has been addressed, he has been adjured by the living God, and he cannot fail to answer. Furthermore, we're told that his own relation to the Father was called in question. He must plainly declare his character and mission. This is no time for beating around the bush or diverting the question. His own relation to the Father was called in question, and so he must give a plain, straightforward answer to the question. And so verse 64, Jesus saith unto him, Thou hast said. It's like saying, you said it. And in Mark's account, in Mark 14:62, Jesus comes right out and says, I am. So Jesus did not deny to be the Christ. Jesus did not deny to be the Son of God. He plainly declared who he was. So, verse 65, Then the high priest rent his clothes, saying, He hath spoken blasphemy. That to be the Son of God was a claim to be equal with God. You find that in John 5:18. And so for Jesus to claim to be the Son of God was to claim divinity. That was blasphemy. And so they all understood that. He has spoken blasphemy. What further have we in need of witnesses? These witnesses haven't done us any good anyway. From his own mouth, he has committed blasphemy. And then in verse 66, What think ye? They answered and said, He is guilty of death. And that is true. If somebody commits blasphemy, that is a crime worthy of death in the Jewish system. So, they've got him. They've got a basis for his condemnation and death. Now, this thing about the priest tearing his clothes, we read in the Old Testament, in Leviticus, that a priest was not supposed to tear his clothes. That actually would undermine his right to be the priest if he tore his clothes. And let me find, Leviticus 21:10. Let's go there. We're just going to look at don't lose your place in Matthew, but Leviticus 21 and verse 10. And he that is the high priest among his brethren, upon whose head the anointing oil was poured, and that is consecrated to put on the garments, shall not uncover his head, nor rend his clothes. Not supposed to do it. But then if you go to chapter 10 of Leviticus, verse 6, you find what the penalty for that would be. Leviticus chapter 10 and verse 6. And let's see. It says, And Moses said unto Aaron, and unto Eleazar, and unto Ithamar, his sons, Uncover not your heads, neither rend your clothes, lest ye die, and lest wrath come upon all the people. Two things would happen. The priest was to be put to death, and secondly, wrath would come on all the people. Caiaphas has just committed a terrible sin by doing this. This was very serious business. Now, let's see if we can go back to Matthew and see where we are here. What the priest now is. So, that was the end of this trial. Now, the thing about this particular trial, the problem of it, see, he had accomplished a lot. He had established a basis for Jesus' death. But the problem was that this trial was at night. And in fact, we saw in verse 57, well, if you had read the context and the full passage here, it was still dark while this trial was going on. The problem with that is that was an illegal trial. You can't hold a trial to condemn somebody at the nighttime when it's still dark. It was an unjust trial. Not everybody was present. Not all of the council members were there. So now they have to hold another trial. This would be the third one in the daytime to actually be a legal trial. So that's where we come to Matthew chapter 27 and verse 1. It says, "When the morning was come, all the chief priests and elders of the people took counsel against Jesus to put him to death." So this is when the morning was come. In Luke's account, in Luke 22:66, in fact, let's just turn to Luke. Luke chapter 22. We see the way Luke describes it here. Luke 22 and verse 66. It says, "And as soon as it was day, the elders of the people and the chief priests and the scribes came together and led him into their council." So here we've got an opportunity for a real legal trial. This is essential in order for them to accomplish what they're trying to do. As soon as it was day, as soon as the sun comes up, now it's still really early in the morning, but the sun is up, they can conduct business legally. What they're hoping is that they can have a repeat of what happened in the night trial so that they can condemn him. So, let's see what happens. In verse 67, Luke 22:67, they go straight to the point. None of this other stuff with the false witnesses. They've got to go straight to the point. "Art thou the Christ? Tell us." They want to get this taken care of right away. Are you the Messiah? Are you the one who we can say is doing this work of sedition? Now, look also at verse 70. "Then said they all, art thou..." Well, let's just read down through the verse. We read the first part of verse 67. "Art thou the Christ? Tell us." This is the last part of verse 67. "And he said unto them, If I tell you, you will not believe. And if I also ask you, you will not answer me, nor let me go. Hereafter shall the Son of Man sit on the right hand of the power of God." Now, here he's not under oath now. He's not like, "I adjure you by the living God." So he gives them a kind of an answer here, but he's answering them in a way by saying, "Hereafter shall the Son of Man sit on the right hand of the power of God." He is actually declaring who he is there by saying that. So, verse 70, because they need this thing very clear. Verse 70, "Then said they all, Art thou then the Son of God? And he said unto them, Ye say that I am." And that was an affirmative answer. We're told in desire of ages, he had declared himself the Son of God. So they have that charge of blasphemy that they can press on him. And so, in verse 71, and they said, "What need we any further witness? For we ourselves have heard of his own mouth." So, they have accomplished their part of the trial. Took 3 trials to do it. First of all, Annas at night, Caiaphas at night, and now Caiaphas with the whole council during the daytime, a legal trial. They've got their part squared away. They still have the Romans that have to condemn him, because the Jews, under Roman rule, were not allowed to condemn a person to death. They had to have the Roman affirmation of it. The Romans had to basically approve the conviction and the sentence. So, that's where we have to take him to Pilate, the governor. So, let's go to John chapter 18. John chapter 18. And verse 28. Then led they Jesus from Caiaphas unto the hall of judgment. And it was early, and they themselves went not into the judgment hall, lest they should be defiled, but that they might eat the Passover. Verse 29. Pilate then went out unto them and said, "What accusation bring ye against this man?" So, see, they want to have this outward piety and looks like reverence for God's law and principles, so they want to be able to keep the Passover, so they don't want to defile themselves, all the while that they are trying to get Jesus, the one that the Passover pointed to, put to death. Well, Pilate is not really very happy. He's been gotten up at an early hour, and he's not wanting to be real cooperative here, and so he says, "What accusation bring ye against this man?" And verse 30, it says, "They answered and said unto him, If he were not a malefactor, we would not have delivered him up to thee." What kind of an answer is that? You see, they don't want him to examine Jesus. They don't want him to really look at the facts. They just want him to rubber stamp what they have already determined. They just hope that he would just make a quick decision. So, hey, if he wasn't a criminal, we wouldn't have brought him to you. So just do like what we say. Verse 31, Then said Pilate unto them, Take ye him and judge him according to your law. The Jews therefore said unto him, It is not lawful for us to put any man to death. Oh, so they want this guy put to death. Now, let's go to Luke 23, and we'll see what charges they try to bring against him. Luke 23 and verse 2. Luke 23 and verse 2. And they began to accuse him, saying, they're going to mention 3 things. Number 1, we found this fellow perverting the nation. Number 2, and forbidding to give tribute to Caesar. And number 3, and saying that he himself is Christ, a king. These are the 3 points that they want to get Jesus on. He's perverting the nation, he's forbidding to give tribute to Caesar, and he claims that he himself is Christ, a king. Well, we don't have time today to actually finish the story. So we're going to stop at this point, and next time I'm with you, we will see how well this goes with Pilate and see how things turn out. And we will look then at the last three of Jesus' trials. Trial before Pilate, which is where he's at right here. Trial before Herod. And then the final trial before Pilate. And we will pick that up next time I am with you. As I was thinking about this experience of Jesus and how we ourselves do under pressure, under persecution, how do we respond? Do we revile again? Or do we leave all into the hands of him who judgeth righteously? We need to learn how to trust completely in God. So let's sing about our trust in God no matter what happens with our closing hymn, number 530.